Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has called on citizens to stop protests over the high cost of living and, quote, end the bloodshed. Security forces have been cracking down on the rallies where demonstrators have been demanding that the government reduce fuel prices and address Nigeria's most severe economic crisis in decades.
Adequate provisions for healthcare and education. Those are just some of the demands of the protesters who occupied the streets of Nigeria's capital on Saturday. They're angry at the government amid allegations of corruption and spiralling inflation.
We will protest because what kind of nation do we want for our children? We are not doing it for ourselves, but we are doing it for our children. We are doing it for tomorrow. We are doing it for the betterment of Nigeria. You can't tell us not to protest.
Rights groups say at least 13 people have been killed by security forces. The police have denied any responsibility. And there are claims of a growing security crackdown. Amnesty International Nigeria's office say at least 50 journalists were arrested during a demonstration on Saturday. The President Bola Ahmed Tinubu pledged to end the protests but offered no concessions to address the country's concerns.
We must stop further bloodshed, violence and destruction. Our government will not stand idly by and allow a few with a clear political agenda to tear this nation apart.
The demonstrations this weekend did appear calmer than those earlier in the week, and the president may have said he hears the people loud and clear. But recognition alone won't fix the country's crippled economy, as people in Africa's most populous nation look to their government for a concrete plan of action.
For more, let's go to DW correspondent Christine Mhundwa in Lagos. Christine, Nigeria's president has told protesters he has, quote, heard them loud and clear. How is that being received by demonstrators?
Melissa, President Tinubu used his early morning address to the nation to make the case for his administration, noting some of the achievements that his government has made since taking office last May. But that didn't appear to be enough for some of the protesters who simply felt that that speech didn't cut it. They felt that the president, in appealing for dialogue, should have at least made some concessions. They say that he didn't grant a single one of their several demands. Of course, they're making several demands. Chief among them is the reinstatement of the fuel subsidy. So protest leaders that I spoke to this morning, getting reaction from them, say they will continue their protests despite the president urging people to suspend the demonstrations.
So how do you see the government reacting as protests continue?
Well, Melissa, we have seen in other states where you've had more violence, we've seen that police have used lethal rounds in dispersing the crowds, hence the death toll that is being reported. It's clear that the police have the resources to be able to do that, certainly if they're given the instruction. One of the things is the turnout for these demonstrations hasn't really been all that high, especially when compared to the 2020 protests that really grabbed international headlines here, went viral for several days, that went on for about 3 weeks or so. It seemed that the authorities had certainly gotten ahead of making sure that they are prepared to overwhelm the protesters in the event that that does happen. So we know that upon getting the instructions, the police certainly do have the capacity to respond very violently to those demonstrations. The ones we've attended here in Lagos, we have seen a heavy police presence. They've got everything from officers from different units to fire to water trucks, so we don't know what the turnout will be. We'll have to see in the coming days whether or not people do come out en masse as the protest leaders are calling for, and we'll see how the authorities respond to that.
Now, President Tinubu said his economic cuts would benefit young Nigerians and the economy, but everyone needs to be patient. Are government officials being asked to make any sacrifices as well?
Melissa, one of the things that the president did when he took office last May was to remove this fuel subsidy that, by the way, institutions like the IMF supported the decision to do so. At the time, the president said that this is something that the country could no longer afford, and there is absolutely evidence for that. But I think part of the challenge for people is that they see a bloated government, for one. They see the country continuing to spend a lot on, for example, Senate members or parliament members who have huge allowances. So
Right.
the message isn't quite resonating. People feel that a lot more money is being allocated to expenses that aren't being accounted for. So
Got
there
it.
is the feeling that government needs to do more in terms of reprioritizing.
Christine Mhundwa, thank you so much for joining us.